Awesome, man. Are you guys feeling godly?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
sure. I just noticed that in that trailer, I got a Goal Fury still.
Did
see
you?
that?
Oh,
Yeah.
well, we
I
shouldn't
just
use
now
that clip.
noticed it. It's like Travis stole the Goal Fury.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being here today. We're so excited to talk a little bit more about Smite 2. We've been working on it for a while now, and yeah, it's exciting to be up here and talking a little bit. A lot of you probably don't know who we all are, so maybe we should just go down and introduce ourselves first. Travis.
I'm Travis Brown, the general manager for Titan Forge Games.
Yep. I'm Ponpon.
Yep.
I'm Ponpon, an advanced game designer on Smite 2 at Titanforge. I was a former pro way back at the launch tournament, and I've since joined the company, and it's been just a crazy ride up to this point.
And I'm Max. I run our data science and analytics, but some people may know me online as Innocent Rabbit, general Smite data guy.
Awesome. And I'm Alex Cantatore. I'm Kilgoon on Twitter. If you are a super old head, you may remember me as running a Smite esports fan blog called Smite-tastic. And then I've been working at Hi-Rez for like 8 years now. And now I'm the executive producer of Smite. And I think one thing that's kind of awesome about all of us except for Travis, is that like we kind of came from the community. Like we were Smite fans first.
Yep.
And I think we're still kind of Smite fans at our core. And I'm going to give Travis a pass because he was making the game at the time, right?
Yeah, right.
And I actually did math before we came down here, and a fifth of the people working at Titan Forge Games came from the Smite community. So just people like you guys, and hopefully more of you will join us because we need a lot more people to keep working on Smite too. So this is awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think like first place to start, Travis. Like, what is Smite 2? Like, what is this project? Can you just tell us a little bit about what we're trying to accomplish here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, somewhere around like the end of 2022, we were just toying with different game modes inside of UE5, and just like what could we do within the Smite IP. And we created a game mode in about 4 weeks using that UE5. And that game mode that we created was like, it was pretty cool. We created it quickly, but it just wasn't quite it. And so we spent the next day maybe iterating to another game mode. Like really quickly, we were able to prototype a new thing. And that wasn't quite it either, but it was really fun. But it gave us the idea that what if we just create Smite experience inside of UE5? So we dedicated about 5 people. We pulled them from the Smite team, focused them on Smite 2, or creating that Smite experience inside of the Unreal Engine 5. And in 4 weeks, we were able to create basically the Smite experience.
That's awesome. And
with 5 people in 4 weeks. So.
Yeah, we're going to see that in a little bit. But first, before we got to that, we had to convince leadership that we should make Smite 2. And to do that, we actually had a PowerPoint deck that we had to make and be like, okay, what the hell is this game going to be? And we actually have some of the slides from it today. And from the start, this was the slide that we were like, okay, guys, what is Smite 2 in a nutshell, right? And it's like, first off, Smite 2 is a true sequel to Smite, powered by Unreal Engine 5.2 plus. And then we had a couple like core pillars, I guess you'd call them. Like, Ponpon, can you talk us through them?
Yeah, so first one, Smite but better. Everyone here has been playing the game like for thousands of hours. We've dedicated so much time to it. At its core, Smite combat feels incredible. And so we wanted to make sure that we were keeping that core fundamental there, but then looking what we could do to evolve it, looking what we could do to take it to the next level. We want more godly action. We knew that we could make character abilities feel so much more impactful. If you saw Ymir's Glacial Strike, if you saw Chalk's Ultimate, you can see that we can actually do so much more now with the Niagara Particle System, with a new audio engine, and just with the upgraded visuals of UE5. And then depth through simplification. We have 10 years of experience actually creating MOBAs, creating PvP experiences. And so we can look at all the systems we've done over all the years, and we can really critically evaluate each one and bring in ones that kind of hit the best of both worlds, right? The ones that add depth to top-end players, but are approachable, as MOBAs can be incredibly hardcore games to get into, and make it so that you can hop in, have fun, and then you have the thousands and thousands of hours of learning to do that's so captivating in a MOBA.
Yeah, definitely. I've heard MOBAs described as like the Souls-likes of multiplayer gaming, where it's like, lose to improve, you gotta die to learn the game. But like, maybe you don't have to die quite as much in Smite 2 if we're doing our jobs right. Cool, if we can, I think we have a couple more slides here. If we can go to the next slide. So this is another slide that was in the deck from day one.
Yep.
For where we wanted to start the project, we're like, okay, first thing we're gonna focus on, we wanna make sure we capture the magic of Smite. And from the start, we were like, that magic is the core third-person combat and MOBA formula, right? And a lot of people have maybe asked about, like, why didn't you guys go with like a 3D, more verticality kind of version of Smite? And it really was like, we thought that this core third-person combat that we have is part of what makes Smite amazing, and changing that was a challenge, right?
Yeah, there's the magic that's there, right? There's some core fundamental thing about Smite that feels so good, and you don't want to just ruin that with changes for the sake of change. You want to really make sure that you're choosing what we're going to change, making sure that all makes sense. Things like that extra verticality was something that we toyed around with early, but we knew that that would fundamentally change how characters approach combat, how characters aim. You'd have to do a lot of different things to consider that. And so, again, with everything we were doing, we were just trying to make sure that we really distilled down what makes Smite so good. And there's a lot of really small things that we've done over the years that, like, you don't really notice until you have to build the game from scratch again to really actually make it feel like Smite.
Awesome. And so we got kind of the magic down, or at least a good starting point.
Yep.
And then the idea was we're evolving and refining it. We're not reinventing it, right? So we're doing things like you were talking about. We're adding the impact. We're simplifying but adding depth. And I think the most important thing that's probably on this slide is like respect and honor our community, and that's been there since day one. We come from the community. We've been talking a lot internally about like, if we're going to transition to a Smite 2 with the kind of restrictions that we have, like, man, what's the best way we can do that? How can we make players feel like they are honored and respected? And we actually did quite a bit of back and forth on this. We came up with a first draft of what would become Divine Legacy and Legacy Gems, and we presented it to our pro players. They were the first people we felt comfortable talking to about Smite 2. And they were like, I don't know, guys. And we were like, okay, well, we got to go back to the drawing board. So we did another version. And we presented it to our, I believe it was our Olympians.
Yep.
And they were like, it's okay. That's okay. And then we were like, oh, man, maybe we got to do one more pass. We took another version at it, and we presented it to some of our content creators. And they were like, you know what? This actually feels pretty good, right? And so we felt very comfortable presenting it this week, and we're going to actually be talking a little bit more about it later today, but yeah, just excited that that's been part of what we were trying to do from the start here. Cool, so Travis, like, we've talked about what Smite 2 is, but I think one of the big questions is like, why did we make Smite 2, and especially now, right? Like you talked about how, but what's the why? What's the reason?
Yeah, I think when we first started making Smite, a long time ago, right? We knew what we wanted to make then, but it was the beginning of Smite, and over the course of like years, 10 years now, we've been continuing to put in new gods with new mechanics, new effects, now we have silences and fears and things that we didn't initially start with. We add new map mechanics, new conquest modes, new features out of match, and so on, and we continue to kind of build on that foundation of Smite over the 10 years. This was an opportunity to reset, and when we were able to build that prototype in UE5, and we were like, wow, this is something that we would feel really great about giving to the players, it was also a chance to take all those learnings from those 10 years and just create a better foundation for the next 10 years. So by knowing where we're headed and knowing what we wanted to create with Smite 2, it allowed us to, an opportunity to reset the core functionality of the game. But then we also have an opportunity to reset for the players, new players being able to engage with Smite 2 with a way less daunting experience of a smaller roster initially was a huge reason why we thought this is a good time to kind of create Smite 2 and give it to the fans. Yeah.
And just one thing I have to show off. So this slide says strictly better. You said strictly better in our keynote.
Yes.
We've been saying strictly better since the beginning. It's kind of a rallying cry for us, right? It's like don't just make the game. Like, don't just change shit to change shit.
Right.
Like, if we're going to change something, let's make sure it's strictly better, and it feels better in every way this way. And one of our producers actually made me a shirt that says strictly better because I say it so much. So I had to wear it today. Hopefully, when you guys all play Smite 2, you feel like it's strictly better too.
No, and that's so critical for you guys to understand. Every time we make a decision on now let's talk about a mirror. What are we going to do with the mirror? We don't want to change things just to change things. Every time we make a decision, we said, is this going to be strictly better? And we just use that as kind of a rallying cry. If it's not strictly better, we don't want to do it. If it's just different, we don't want to do it. So that's been something that has been very important during the development process.
Yeah. And so, Ponpon, like, we talked about these goals: impact, creativity, strategy. But to do this, like, we kind of had to start with like a fresh start for how we're approaching balance. We had to start with a fresh start for how we're approaching items. I know that the item changes are some of the biggest ones that players have seen. Maybe you can like kind of talk us through the item changes, and I think we have a little bit of B-roll of the item store that maybe we can play so people can see some new items.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing was we noticed that when you're playing Smite 1, if you want to start going into a direction, you kind of have to know what your end goal is immediately, right? You have to know that you're okay with being in the mace tree because there's something in there that's going to be good for you to build, right? But MOBAs are dynamic. They change all the time. The character you thought might be strong, the character you might need to be worried about isn't actually what ends up being important in that moment, right? Yeah. So we wanted to go kind of back to basics with that and make it also so that it feels a bit more intuitive for how you want to build your items. So each item is now a kind of atomic component. So there is a strength mace, and it builds from all the strength items. There's an attack speed bow that builds into all the attack speeds. And you can combine them in different ways, but you can leave the base knowing, okay, I need to be worried about Anubis. He's the one that's carrying right now. I can build a magical protection item, and then as the game develops, I can go, actually, the Anubis is not the big problem now. I could start throwing some power items in that and go towards a power magic protection item that's a good bruisery item, but not a purely defensive choice. And so that's one of the big things we wanted to do there. And we also knew that we were going to be trying to explore active itemization.
Yes.
And so that was another kind of a great example of simplification, but adding depth. You want the wins of a new player being able to hop in and kind of choosing their own difficulty and opting in when they're ready, but also allowing the more professional players, the more hardcore players, they could start to throw in like 4 or 5 active items that they feel like those are going to be beneficial effects to their team. And so that kind of opt-in difficulty, right? That's just great for new players coming in and for the veterans to really customize their build.
Yeah, so right now I think we have some actual B-roll playing of you playing as Bologna.
Okay. I hope it's good.
This was a surprise. I don't know what this.
Yeah. So this is from a playtest that we did when we were capturing footage actually for some of the stuff that we used in the keynote. So we can see you kind of picking your starter item there. Now we don't actually have starter items right now. Maybe we will eventually, but maybe just like go into a little bit more depth on like how we set like I want to build a strength item. What do I do?
So the first thing you do is you go, okay, cool. The mace is the strength item. I want to build strength. I build the mace, and from there I'm deciding to see just kind of how I want to go. If I know I'm going to pure damage Bologna, I might look at that and go, okay, I can see what it builds into up above. I see what options I have available to me. I might build a Skagox, which is 2 maces combined together for a whole bunch of power. And then once I build that, I can be like, okay, cool, I have 3 options here. I just want to keep going damage. So I build a mace, and I keep just throwing on maces, and eventually I have an incredibly high power item because I just did the intuitive thing, right? I knew I wanted power, so I built the atomic things for power, and it kind of naturally flowed me in through using the builds into menu what I wanted to be building.
And there's the builds into menu right there up the top.
Yeah. And it's nice, too, because you can start to splash things as a little bit. So, like, for example, cooldown rate, the ring that you can buy. That's just something that you might pick up because you just want a little bit of cooldown reduction right now. It helps you time with wave clear and everything. And you can just build that and potentially sit on it for a while as you wait for your decision. So it just really feels natural when you're utilizing the system. You're just making the choices that come to your mind when you go back to base, like, what do I think I need right now? And you can just always point to the specific thing you need in that moment. And just it naturally comes together into an item at the end.
And it is a little bit of a change from how we do things in Smite, right? So, you know, how many games, how long do you think it's going to take people to get used to this new way of building items?
I would say you're probably going to be spending maybe 2 or 3 games, which is a pretty short time for a MOBA span, to really get the familiarity of like how these items put together and your flow through the item store of like how you want to like think about how you build into things. I personally use that built into menu at the top all the time. It's really great for me. It helps me keep focus on what's going on. And then you're going to spend the next 20, 30, 40, 50 games just discovering all the build possibilities you have, right? Like I played an Odin game, and I love playing Odin where I get to stim my whole team so that we can kill objectives really fast. Like, I love using the quick fire of the spear throw so that it actually does the attack speed stim. And so I started just picking up Shoguns. I started picking up, I think it's Damaru's Drum, which is the music tree is like the split hybrid physical and int scaling. So strength and int. And so I just built a whole bunch of things that made my team strong and let me support my team. I could throw down a mushroom to heal them, which is really cool.
Yeah,
and like
that's a
I just
cool
played
active.
that style, and I was like, we are winning every objective fight. We were going to burn Gold Fury, we we're going to burn Fire Giant, we we're going to burn Phoenix, and that was just super fun. And that's a completely different experience from a full tank CDR Odin or a full strength Odin or even a pure int Odin because he has int scaling now. So there's just so much more diversity with like the character Odin now, and it's just really fun.
That's awesome.
One of my favorite experiences this week during the dev playtests was building Chalk purely int and cooldown reduction, and so his abilities will scale off of int and strength in certain ones, and so his healing now will scale off of int. And so I would just go in, disrupt the team fights, and then just sustain with my healing just maximized.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Awesome.
A different way to play Chalk that currently doesn't exist in Smite.
Definitely. And it kind of takes us into the next point. Like, all of these gods that we're trying to bring over from Smite 1 to Smite 2, right? Like, I know there's a lot of temptation, like, do we just completely reimagine everybody's got a new kit, you know? Do we completely change the way every god looks? Do we, you know, how do you guys decide, like, what things we change, what things we say the same? Like, what's the process going into that?
Yeah, so it's just we look at every character individually. At the end of the day, every character in Smite, someone is a huge fan of. And we know this when we do reworks in Smite 1 as well. Like, we're trying to be very careful to make sure that that character's identity stays intact. And we're taking the same approach in Smite 2. We're looking at the characters it brings over, and we're looking for the first thing is quality of life improvements. So, for example, Chalk can actually now refire his 1 after he throws his axe to just consume the axe without doing anything else. So if you realize that you want to spin in place and not teleport to it, you can do that easily without having to recast your 3. And that was just an easy to add thing. Or Ymir wall, where you can place it underneath you and walk over it. That's now a built-in mechanic where the target actually snaps behind you to show that that is an intended interaction. So all those quality of life improvements are the first pass. And then we also just look at what the character needs to succeed, right? We knew that if we aren't giving the potential for blink right out the gate at level 1 to Ymir, he really does blink in and freeze, and that's kind of like his immediate way to initiate a fight. And if he's losing that, it's hard for him to fill the role of this kind of like warrior dude who walks in, slows everyone, beats on them with the ice mallet, right? Yeah. But the wall, we had a version where you're like, let's just throw a knockback on it, see if that helps him, right?
Yeah.
And we threw that on, and it was really nice to be able to pull people to you, push people away, disrupt the team fight that way. It helped him fit the role he was supposed to without the need for blink, which was something that we liked about that. But it was also a bug where he could knock himself up. And we were like, actually, that's just cool. So I think that's the biggest thing is we look at these characters, fit what their role is supposed to be, figure out what we have to do to make them fit that niche that we've defined as, keeping and preserving what makes that character iconic. And then because we can just rapidly prototype, that Ymir knockup change came up. That was like a 30-minute change, which before would have been a Jira task that had to go to programming, and it could have taken them a while to really implement it. And we would just throw it in there because of just the gas system in Unreal Engine 5. Yeah. That kind of stuff, we just never really had the opportunity to just as rapidly prototype through ideas as we had before. So it helps us land on what feels good.
And I think we also have a video of On Her where we changed his ultimate. Can you talk maybe a little bit about that?
Yeah, and so another type of change that we're looking at is characters that are abilities that we don't feel like have as much impact, right? So On Her ultimate is one of those things where it's very powerful. You shoot a whole bunch of projectiles through targets, but the animation is just kind of him doing this. There isn't that much grandiose to it. And the other thing is there's not much of a gameplay loop to it outside of just trying to hit all the shots. And so when we wanted to look and see how we could add more impact to the character, we thought, well, maybe we could actually shorten the amount of shots he has and have one really big one at the finale. So you really are playing towards that last shot. And that was an opportunity for us to have like that big wind-up moment, get a whole bunch of sound effects in, and really also differentiate each projectile from each other. Because On Her throws basic attacks, impales, and ults, and they all look very similar. And so being able to differentiate them was another reason why I wanted to try and rework the ultimate. So everyone's been playing it, they're having a blast. The final hit is especially hard hitting. So I definitely, once you guys get a chance to get your hands on it, I'd love to have you guys get a shot.
One small minor change that we didn't see with On Her is also he can place his pillar behind him as well.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
And that's like a thing where that was like such a good quality of life improvement for Ymir. And On Her players often want to do a very similar thing, and they have to do a 180 quick turn and come back. But now it's a kind of built-in part of it. And I've used it to escape many a chasing Bellona.
Yeah. And another thing that we saw in that clip that maybe we could just really quickly talk about is stealth grass.
Yeah.
So I know people have wanted stealth grass in Smite for forever. We did the stealth fog at one point in time. Why stealth grass in Smite 2? How does it work? How has it impacted playtest so far?
It just creates that uncertainty, right? We want to make sure that you don't feel like you're ever in a solved and completely safe place while you're playing, right? You want to be grouped up with your team. You want to be very tactical with the vision that you have. You want to try and keep tabs because that kind of map control, map vision, understanding what the enemy team might be trying to do is a skill set in MOBAs. And so having the stealth grass there just creates an extra layer of uncertainty. You never know when you're walking towards the fire giant pit. There's a stealth grass right at the entrance. Is someone there? Do you want to face check it? Is it potentially 4 people in that bush and you might potentially face check it? Or you might know they're all there, you let them group up, you let them hide, and then you just suddenly cuckoo ult it and tornado it and they just all get obliterated, right? Awesome. Just the amount of flexibility, Loki especially, like Loki being able to stealth and go into a grass and hide, the amount of evasive trickery you get to do with it just adds a whole new dimension to team fights, it adds a whole new dimension to how you might want to set up ganks or control space in the map. And that's the kind of stuff we're looking for to make sure that there is that depth there, but it's also pretty easy to understand. Right? You walk into it, you become stealthed. If you fire from it, you become visible for a little bit of time. If other people are in the grass with you, you'll reveal to them. So we're trying to make sure the rules are intuitive well so people can just pick it up and just immediately understand, oh yeah, I walk in here, I'm stealthed, I understand it.
Awesome. And obviously, we're making this game in UE5. I'm sure it's brought its own set of challenge, but also a lot of new tools that you can use. You gave us a screenshot of the blueprints for one of the gods that you're building right now.
Yeah.
Maybe just explain what this is and what we're looking at.
So spoilers, it's Zeus. You can read it. You can see it's Zeus.
I didn't notice it.
Yeah. So there you have it. But this is what our actual design workflow looks like. We have these blueprint systems that are a whole visual-based scripting language, and we've also customized it to go on top of GAS, which is Unreal 5's game playability system, and that allows us to rapidly iterate through this. And the TLDR of this is Chain Lightning has a lot of rules. It needs to bounce to new targets if it can. It needs to have a priority system. It needs to interact with the shield if that's there. It needs to be able to bounce off that stuff. And so there's a lot of rules that have to be there, but I implemented all those rules, grabbing all the actors around, making sure that they're the right type, making sure they follow the filter rules, caching them off, changing the damage of the Chain Lightning or having it apply the right charge stacks. All of that was done without consulting a programmer because they've made us such an incredible tool set. And so if I want to change Chain Lightning perhaps, if I want to change a rule, I don't have to wait potentially a week for programming to find the time to do it, or they might discover an issue with that and it might be hard to work with because, again, UE3, old Smite, there's a lot of legacy code there that might make certain changes that seem easy significantly more difficult. I get to do a 30-minute rework of it, and we get to play it in tomorrow's playtest, and or I can play it right then in editor, and I can get to see how it feels, see how that change feels, and it's just super empowering as a designer to be much more hands-on and be able to really prove-fail different ideas.
Awesome. So now, obviously, the footage that we've been showing, this is the product of 11, 12 months of work, right? And obviously leveraging a lot of the amazing art that's been done for Smite over 10 years and, starting from a great base there. But it didn't always look like this. So the day is February 24th.
Okay.
Go back in your little time machine. This is the first time that we ever played something that looked like Smite 2 in UE5. And it's a little bit rough, but I think you could start to see maybe the promise. So tell us, Travis, a little bit about how we got here, what we're looking at, what this is.
Well, the video that we're going to see is basically, this is the culmination of the 4 weeks of work with 5 people. We imported, I think, all of the environment assets from Smite into the UE5 engine. We got, I think, a couple of gods up and running that were able to be played, and we were moving around. It's gonna look a little rough.
Yeah, and this is again building up everything from scratch. None of the the scripting and the behind the scenes came from Smite 1. Everything you see here, the mini map showing minions on it, seeing damage numbers, getting the abilities up and running, getting a HUD set up. These were all built from scratch, and this took us 4 weeks. Which, even though it looks really rough, this would have taken us forever to build from scratch.
Attacks, they're just crispy, man.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Ship it.
I mean,
ship it.
Yeah, we could have shipped that.
Yeah,
I guess,
ship that.
right?
Yeah.
Dude, that axe is entirely designer art. The rotating was completely faked.
It's awesome. And obviously it's awesome that we were able to get here so quick, but we knew that we had a lot of work still to do. as much fun as it is to run around with on her doing silly basic attacks.
I like just the lower legs not moving at all as the attacks.
Right. But that video is what made us believe that in 4 weeks with 5 people we could do that. Imagine what we could do if we dedicate, and that's what kicked off making Smite 2.
The crowd thinks we can release that. But I think that like part of why the speed and the power of UE5 is so important to us is that like it's like there's 130 gods in Smite. Every god is somebody's favorite, like we're saying. There's an Olympian. I don't know if any of y'all know Opwash. The dude, like, I'm not sure if Opwash is going to play Smite 2 until we put Opwash in Smite 2, right?
Yep.
And it's like, we can't go from Smite 1 to Smite 2 without being able to move quickly and with the power that UE5 has really provided to us, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think up until UE5 really was out, we really could do this. We had talked to the community for so long, like a Smite 2 would be incredibly difficult, incredibly time-consuming, and all that was really true until UE5 came out, the gas system being kind of fully pulled into it, and just the full, complete tool set that was available there. It really was that eye-opening moment. I tweeted out a picture of when we first imported the asset over of the order base and just turned on lumen lighting, and we're like, this looks this much better. And an artist hasn't even touched the material work here. They haven't done anything to balance the lighting. They haven't done anything else. And we just saw that like it just looked that much better out the gate. And then we saw that we could just get an ability up and running so much faster. It was the eye-opening experience. Like, I think now we can do it, right? And I think that was the moment that you were talking about. It was like, now it's possible.
And through this process of building it out through the past 11 months, maybe just like, we'll talk a little bit about what you do day to day in a second here, but like, is there like a favorite moment or like an aha thing that happened as we were developing Smite 2?
I think it was the Ymir wall.
The Ymir wall?
Yeah, we had some internal videos. We put together a video, and we had the Ymir wall knock up. We were having a blast with it in playtest, and we were all really excited about it. But the rest of the team working on Smite 1, we showed them the video, and their reaction to seeing that and the messages I got from people internally, like, oh my god, that's so hype. Like, just like the joy that was like, that we could bring there, it was, that moment was really, really, really cool.
Yeah, the walling to knock people back into tower range is one of the most satisfying things I think that we're doing right now, so that's what's great. Awesome, so Travis, like, there's a lot that goes into making a video game. There's so many different departments, there's so many different pieces, and there's so much that's just like feels, you know?
Right.
It's like, how do you know what feels good? How do we say like, does this feel like Smite? You know, especially when we're starting from scratch and have to, even the units are different, right? I remember there was a big argument about that in the early days of Smite 2.
Oh yeah.
So, how do you go through this process of making everything feel great, feel strictly better, right?
Yeah, I mean, because again, we know with Smite 2 where we're going, where we're headed, what features we need, what functionality we need. We know we need gods migrated. We know they're going to be better. The great team at Titanforge Games has a lot of experience knowing what that is, right? So daily, we will advance those features. We'll add that new functionality, new gods. So the pipeline of where we're going and how we get there is pretty straightforward. We know what we need to do, and the team is executing on it like flawlessly. But daily, I will record, I think we have maybe 4 or 5 different perspectives where we record the play tests that we have daily. And I will watch the gameplay. As I'm playing, I will make a note on the notepad looking for areas that just didn't feel right to me. And it's not a bug. I'm not worried about the bugs, right? The bugs we will find, but it's just something that didn't feel right. You know, there's going to be 1,000 little things that just don't quite feel right that I make a note. And every time I make a note, I go back, spend probably about an hour or 2 every single day watching back videos, frame by frame, of the time where I said, that just didn't feel right. And when I look at those videos, most of the time it'll be like, okay, that I can justify why what I thought didn't feel right happened. But it doesn't invalidate the feeling that I had in that moment that it didn't feel right. Mm-hmm. So we will actually look at that and try to find ways to make it so that we resolve the reason why I didn't feel right in that moment. So we might make a design change, or we might change some effects, or we might like do something to make it a lot more clear so that the next time I'm encountering that situation, it just feels right.
That's
So I spend a
the
lot of
attention to
time doing
detail.
that.
Yeah.
Attention
And-
to detail every day, watching literally frame by frame playbacks of video.
I've seen you actually have 2 videos side by side of Smite 1 and Smite 2 frame by framing to see like what's different, what's not feeling right. So
That's right.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
So we actually do have one example that you gave us here. So
Oh, that's right.
I would love everybody in the audience. This is a playtest from maybe 3-4 months ago. So
This is a playtest from 1 month ago.
okay. Excuse me, 1 month ago.
December 6th.
This is how far we've gone in a month.
Wait until you see this video.
So this is a playtest from 1 month ago. Everybody in the audience and watching at home, watch this video and see if something, obviously the graphics are rough and whatnot, but see what feels, okay.
Also, don't pay attention to the fact that I miss almost every ability. That's not
Pay
important.
attention to it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's not important.
But-
But yeah, it's like, there's one big thing, the cooldowns you can see weren't working, but that's not what I'm talking about here. Watch for the thing
Yeah,
that
watch and
stands
see,
out.
does anything feel weird or off to you in this moment? So if we can play the clip.
Other than me missing everything.
Nice. Nice.
I also didn't go in cooldown. That's
He hit the ult at least.
Hey!
So the
Okay.
mini game that you guys just played at home, this is my daily experience. So
Yeah, you having to carry Travis in every playtest. Yeah.
I think I killed Pon there.
Yeah,
if I remember
probably.
right. Yeah, there you go.
He's actually really good at Bologna. It's just not an Anubis guy. So in that moment, when you were like, something didn't feel right,
Yeah.
but it was just like, looked like regular gameplay to me. So let's see, what's the first, talk us through here.
So during that fight, when I was playing Anubis and I was running from Chalk, I noticed that there felt like there was a delay in the reaction of me getting hit and everything registering on my client. And so what I did was I broke down, if we can go back to that first frame. This was the first shot, and if you look at the health bar, hopefully it reads well. The health bar is full, and if we advance 1 frame in my video playback, you can see that my health has registered that that damage has happened to me, which means the server told my client that my new health value is 651 or 691 or something. But nothing has hit me, right? So if we advance it again, you notice again that now we see some effects, but you see another damage update from the server to the client saying my health is 450, 440 something, and still no feedback here. And so I frame advance again, and now you see a damage number register, which was the first hit that I had taken, and then advance again. And now you see the second one stacked below that. And so I think that's the last of this series here. So I took this information to the programming team, and we, basically like, look, if the information's getting passed from the server to the client, telling me that my new health value, then we must also have all the information available to say what the damage number was and to play the hit effects on my character. So sure enough, we looked into it, and we were seeing it from 2 different systems, and one arrived a tick earlier than the other. And so by going through I literally do this every day for hours, looking for any of these types of things that just quite didn't feel right. And sure enough, we made them send on the same tick. And now, as a result of finding this, we were able to kind of get all those in sync to where that all registers.
And that's what makes a game feel crispy and really precise, right? It's like everything happens in the same frame. Even 1 frame off can make a game just not feel great.
Yeah,
and that's the level of attention that you put into this.
And that's the thing, is that I know that you guys are gonna add a great shock and new changes to them. I know that we're gonna add new functionality, whatever. So that actually gives me the opportunity to get and dig into those playtests every day and look for the reasons why things might not feel so great. There was one more image. I don't know if we have that up. Yeah, and this was at the end of the video. This is kind of helping my case of I didn't miss everything on purpose here. But if you look at Anubis, you'll see, again, frame by frame, I was breaking it down. His animation looks like it should have fired straight at that Hi-Rez SWC01, which was Pon, by the way. But if you look, the projectile cached its aim a couple of frames before that, and you can see I drew a red line showing the projectile firing in one direction, but the animation and the timing looked like I should have been firing it directly at Chalk there.
Yep.
And so, again, that's another case where we can break down frame by frame watching these playbacks, and then we figured out that we were caching the aim a little bit too soon, and we can line up the animation and effects to make sure that we're making those projectiles go in the right direction.
Yeah, and we often uncover core issues there too. Like we have and it's, again, UE5, really cool stuff. We made some debugging lines that actually showed what the client and the server saw on multiple clients and drew them all as distinct debug lines. We could actually go and reproduce a lot of issues that were happening.
Yeah, and every day you have like a list of like, these are the top 10 things we need to fix. Yeah. And every day we fix, as many as we can get done on the top 10 list. Yeah. And then next day, there's a new top 10 list. Right. And it's just making progress like that every day. It's great.
And the whole idea there, again, is it's not about fix even the highest priority issues for the next playtest. It's the 5 things that we feel like we can accomplish that will make tomorrow feel better than today. And so it's not about figuring out like, oh, we were having a bug here. No, forget that. We should maybe update the health bars, or we should update the damage numbers or whatever, make it more responsive and make things look better. That's daily. I'll send out huge lists to the chagrin of the dev team. But yeah, it's
good.
You mentioned bugs. In development, some silly bugs happen. I think we have a silly bug clip here. Maybe you can tell us what we're looking at.
Yeah, this was a play test. The entire play test, basically we had Bologna inverting every time she took damage and filling the entire play space. So the entire play test was full of Bologna jump scares, and that's the types of challenges we have on a daily basis. Now, I wouldn't have made that one of my top 5. That was clearly a bug that we needed to fix, right?
There's one, we don't have a clip of it here, but there's one where Bacchus belly flops, and he just disappears. And he's just gone for the rest of the game. He just vanished. Yeah. And that was just like something that happened. We had to like figure out why that happened and fix it.
Are we sure that's a bug?
That's awesome. And obviously we had that fixed, a day later. So when you play it, Bologna won't be getting massive restrictions.
Right.
Awesome. So we've had a lot of people play the game backstage here. We've got some great feedback this weekend. Thank you for everybody who had the chance to play, and sorry that everybody here didn't. But we've also gotten a lot of great feedback earlier on from people playing the game. So the first people who played the game who wasn't devs were actually our pro players. And we let them play a pretty early version of the game a few months ago. And our video team likes to record things for posterity's sake. So they recorded some of the playtest footage, and they also recorded kind of the pros' reaction to playing it for the first time. And they turned it into a little video. And maybe we could play the video, and then we could just talk a little bit about the feedback that we got from the pros.
Okay.
I'm most excited about just all the things that Smite wasn't capable of doing. Like, Smite was back in Unreal 3, and with like all the technicalities of the game and stuff, it was harder to fix smaller things. And I think with the new engine, it's going to make things a lot easier to actually resolve and make things better. So I'm excited for that.
Oh, already the graphics, like, even though it's not like a full build, I can just tell that when the game is like fully polished, it's going to look stunning. Like in terms of character animations and effects, like Anha specifically is like I think a really good showcase of that from what I tried. He felt like incredibly fun in Smite 1, and I think they've done a good job in Smite 2 to make him feel similar, but still different to like fit a new game. I think his ult change is really fun with like the 3 shots into like a slower 4th one. And also like when he jumps, like his camera like has like a effect as you're landing. I think stuff like that really adds to like how powerful you can feel as a character, and I think I've done a really good job with him.
I played on her and Chalk. I think his ult is like really cool, and his rain is actually insanely like really detailed. It's like when you press 3, the rain is like affecting the ground.
I'm hoping that there isn't a ton of changes in Smite 2. Like, not straying too far away from what Smite really is and trying to stay true to itself, while like keeping and making like small changes that make the game a lot of fun.
Can't wait. I just can't wait to see how the game evolves from what we tried today to like a few months down the line, and then as closer we get to the full release.
Awesome. So from that first playtest, we got a lot of really good feedback. We also got a lot of like very critical feedback because
Yeah.
pros take the game really seriously. They notice a lot of the things. And what were some of the feedback pieces we got? How did that help evolve the game?
Yeah, so I think one of the main pieces of feedback we got was I feel like I'm playing like slow-mo 0.8. I'm playing at like 80% speed. And if you go watch that footage, especially watching Ymir do his attacks, he does look like he's moving slow. Attacks feel like they're delayed in registration. So that critical feedback helped us isolate early on that we really need to focus on it. And so we went and looked at every single thing, making sure that things worked correctly. We adjusted our approach to animations based off that feedback. We were doing a lot more blending than we do now to make sure that things feel crispy and snappy. We figured out that on the back end, we weren't doing error correction the correct way. So based off the server tick rate, you could overshoot a little bit, and then every ability would be delayed by basically a server frame tick, which one tick doesn't feel like a lot, but when it's happening consistently on abilities, you could be desynced by up to 0.2 seconds, 0.3 seconds, and you're definitely going to feel that. So that critical feedback really early on let us really refine our approach, and we embrace it, and we're really thankful for the pros who played that day, being critical, being honest about what they experienced, saying that it didn't feel right yet, and that gave us the push to really make sure that we refined it to the best it could be.
Awesome. Now, Max, I'm sorry, I've kind of left you out of the discussion so far.
That's all good.
But I love you, you're my favorite.
As I should be.
Yeah. So the reason why we wanted you to be on the panel today, right, is because you've been doing a lot of work thinking about matchmaking and ranked,
Yep.
looking at Smite 1 and thinking about what we want to do differently for Smite 2. And I know for everybody would love us to have better matchmaking and better ranked, and I think we're going to in Smite 2 with your great plan. So
Hopefully, yeah.
tell us about what we have in store, because I'm
Yeah.
super excited.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
There we go, that's appropriate.
Awesome. Yeah. No. I like to refer to matchmaking as the most important game mechanic that is out of the game, because it's so core to shaping a player's experience with the game, because it's matching you up against other people. And the kind of leading question here is, why does matchmaking need changes? When we talk to people about like if they've had a negative experience with Smite, the most common top answer they give us is matchmaking. And the reason why they say matchmaking could be a whole bunch of different things that we've come to understand over the past few years. But going into Smite 2, we have a chance to use our better systems that we'll have in place to address a lot of issues. And that's kind of the first point that I want to touch on, which is that we get to modernize our systems. When I'll say about a year ago now is when kind of the team that I'm on decided that improving matchmaking would be our primary goal. And we had all these ideas when looking at our current system about how we could do that, how we could make like concrete improvements. And we would develop it, we would test it, we would put it into the live matchmaking service, and like 30 minutes later, it would like crash on us. And games would stop firing, and we'd have to revert everything really quickly, and we'd be like, oh my God, we can't do this. And we kept kind of fighting this battle over and over again about, here's the improvements we want to make, and the system just was not set up to handle it. So the decision was made to, instead of putting in all that time and effort on getting just the bits and pieces we could, to just focus on making Smite 2's matchmaking strictly better, and the shirt. And yeah, so part of that is that with these new systems, we'll be able to be a lot more flexible and make changes on the fly. Day one, Smite 2 matchmaking will not be perfect, but we intend on constantly iterating. Thank you. And gathering that data, making sure that we are always working on it. And part of that is also going to be this MOBA-specific approach. And this is, to give some context to you guys, almost every matchmaking skill rating algorithm that's used for team-based video games started on shooters. And the thing about shooters is that everyone loads into the game kind of playing the same game. You need the same skills, you have access generally to the same guns, but MOBAs are different. MOBAs, you start with a different role, a different god, and that requires different skill sets. And players have these kind of varied skill sets where one player, like in the example that you can see here, maybe their overall rank is platinum, so like slightly above average, but if you look at their specific roles, they have some that they're better at and some that they're worse at. And why this is really important is that when making matches, we ran into the situation where we'd have two teams, and it looked like they were the same equally matched team, but on one side, they had a really cohesive team. the team, they could fill out the roles really well, but on the other team, maybe all of them could only play jungle. And they couldn't fill out the other roles, and this game was unintentionally really unbalanced. And previously, we would have never been able to catch that. But now when we run our new system against some match data, we go, hey, look, this is actually not a good match to make. And in Smite 2, we'll be able to use our new systems to do this exact kind of work. So I'm super excited to be working on it. I'm super excited for players to try it out, see if it feels better. But as I said, we're going to be constantly moving through other things. And the other point that I want to talk about matchmaking is kind of fun versus skill balance. A fun match isn't necessarily the most balanced by skill match. There's so many other factors that go into making a game fun for our players, and we're taking all of those things into account. And finally, how do you handle a casual match versus a ranked match? And yeah, I'll cover some of our plans for ranked in Smite 2. It's a plan that we're really excited about. We get a chance with Smite 2 to build from the ground up again. Yeah. And doing that, we have 10 years of experience and learning from Smite 1. We have so much feedback that we've been given, and we're trying to take all of that in and put it into a new system that's going to be so much better for our players. So the way we're going to do this is focusing on 2 goals. The first goal that I want to talk about is expanding the player base, and the second goal is kind of reviving the competition. So if you go to the next slide, talking about expanding the player base, the reason why expanding the player base is so important is that the best way to improve matchmaking is always just to have more players. It's kind of the one quick trick always to make better games is to have more data points to pull from. And for Smite 1, the ranked player base is super passionate, super loyal, but comparatively small to kind of our contemporaries. As a stats guy, I will pull one out here. Out of all Smite players that ever played the game, only 5% have ever even tried a ranked match of any mode. So 1 in 20 players only, and although some people don't want to necessarily play in the ranked environment, we think that we can make a system that is more inviting to players who maybe want to just try the competitive mode, see what that side of the game is like, and enfranchise them to feel that they can do that. And how we're going to do that? Well, we're going to address a lot of common barriers. So off the top, ones that we're already working on are long wait times, especially when a match gets like an abandoned, so you get kicked out of the match, making sure players are getting back into a match as fast as possible. Party limitations, so both size limitations and rank limitations. As far as rank limitations, size limitations go, the whole idea is keep the top end competitive, make sure players feel like their matches aren't being dominated by parties, but make sure if a player is new to the ranked system, they have a way to play with their friend or friends potentially, and we're exploring all of those options. And finally, to kind of continue with this, right now, when you enter into the ranked mode, you start right at 1500 MMR, which is what is the average MMR. And this creates kind of a problem for 2 reasons. The first one is that new players have to play against these kind of 200-300 games played, and we say you're average players, and they get their butts handed to them. And then also, these 200-300 players have to get new players in their game, and they're not having a good time because this player doesn't know how to play ranked. So that's kind of a middle-out system, and we want to switch from that to something that's more akin to an upwards progression system. So this means that if you're new to ranked, you start at the bottom of the ladder, and you work your way up. So an average player and a new player will be separated. And we're really hopeful for this, and to facilitate this, we're going to be kind of re-examining our whole skill rating system in ranked. So right now we use the MMR plus TP system. It's kind of confusing. We feel like it kind of devalues each one. So we want to unify this system, and we want to have one core system, your skill rating, that displays both your rank, both the tier that you're in, and kind of how we're matchmaking you all at the same time. We have a lot of details about that system that we want to share later, but super excited. We've gotten the chance to share it with some of our creators in the past, and they were all super excited on it. So yeah, we're really looking forward to that. And to kind of revive the competition, one one of the points on there was maybe the first one we wrote down when making Smite 2 ranked. It was the first bullet point, which was uncapped. We've got so much feedback from players who have got to the top of the ladder and had nowhere else to go. What better way to revive competition than to give a competition for the #1 spot in the world, #1 spot in your region, have that leaderboard, and we really hope that this helps make that top end more exciting. But also, with the new system that we're designing, we can take a look at kind of win-loss rewards and make sure that when we're moving away from this hard tie to MMR and kind of this softly created TP system, we can have something that feels rewarding, feels satisfying to play, and a lot of our players have a good time playing. And just to kind of tease it, because we don't want to give away all the nitty-gritty details, but there will be a few new rank tiers to battle over, and the top end will be sort of redesigned to make sure that the difference between the top 2%, the top 1%, and the top 0.5% is really shown, and there's a lot more to earn in our system, and we're so excited to show off all the plans for this in the future.
Yeah, I can't wait to definitely not make the top 100 in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
To see who is, right? Because right now it's like, well, there's a lot of players that we know are at the tippity top, but like, if you gave them the opportunity, who would really rise to take
I can
the crowd?
spoil it a little bit. We've kind of simulated a ranked season under our new mode, and the tippity top, one of the things that I do want to clarify that I didn't touch on was the first point being that with the kind of skill rank system with uncapped, we want it to be quality over quantity. So we don't want it to be just a grind fest where you have 2,000 games played with a 51% win rate and you're above really good players. When we ran it on the last year of ranked data we have, the top players were at least partially comprised of players who have played on the stage this weekend. So it's mostly for the best of the best. And one other, just to a point earlier that I kind of missed, is that with the kind of MOBA-specific matchmaking, none of that will be that you're playing support, so we're using your support rating. It's more that we have a better understanding of who players are, their range of skills. So we know what we're doing when we make that match, not saying, oh, you're playing this role, so this is a new rating for you. It's just understanding the variance that players have. So 2 clarification points.
Awesome. Well, I'm really looking forward to the max making.
Oh my God,
I think it's going to be
there
great.
it is.
No, we can't call it that.
Yeah, we can't call it that.
We cannot call it that.
I think it's going to be awesome, and thank you so much for giving us a quick little preview
course,
towards
yeah.
it. Now, I think we have like one more area we want to touch on real quick before we get to the Smite World Championships, which I know everybody's really excited to see. And we want to talk a little bit about kind of the transition plan from Smite 1 to Smite 2, when you can start playing, and a little bit more about Divine Legacy and answering some of the questions that you had. So I think we have a couple more slides that I'm going to talk through. So the first thing, we talked about this yesterday, but for people who, or 2 days ago now, time is amazing. Then the question is, what do you get in Smite 2? How are we honoring and respecting your time, money, and accomplishments in the new game? And the kind of 3 key things here is that you're going to get all of your gems waiting for you in Smite 1 that you have spent. The way that our backend works, we can only really track the gems that you have spent. So if you have gems just sitting in your account, those won't move over until you spend them. But everything that you have spent, free or paid gems, will move over. And those gems can be used for 50% off most in-game purchases in Smite 2. And I'm going to talk a little more about that in a second. You're also going to get a bunch of free skins through the Divine Legacy program. You're going to get up to 11 free skins in Smite 2 through this system, which kind of analyzes your gameplay. It looks at how many gods you've mastered from each season, how many hours you've played, things like that. And also, you can grind out those 11 skins in year 11 just by playing the game and getting experience that way. So even if you haven't played much Smite, you can get everything in that tier for free. And you can also get a free choose your own unlimited tier 4 and tier 5 in Smite 1 for free just by playing through this system, which is pretty exciting. The last thing, which we didn't really go into much detail on in the keynote because there was already so much to say, is that you're going to get a bunch of badges in Smite 2 that honor very specific things that you've done in Smite 1. So if you were a closed beta player in Smite 1, you're going to get an avatar in Smite 2 that's a badge in Smite 2 that says I was a closed beta player in Smite 1. If you had Archon Thanatos in Smite 1, you're going to get a badge that shows that you own Archon Thanatos in Smite 2. We've got a list of it's more than 50 things that we're tracking that when we went through, we felt were like some of the most important things that players would want to show off that you will get badges for. And you will get a badge that lets you showcase your god mastery level and stars for each god in Smite 1. So if you have 80 stars on Aphrodite, you can show everybody in Smite 2 that you had 80 stars on Aphrodite in Smite 1. So hopefully that feels good. And I know there were a lot of questions that came up about the systems over the past few days. So we tried to answer a couple of the most commonly asked questions here on this next slide. One of them was, how did you choose the Divine Legacy skins? And we actually went through the data of the most equipped skins per character. And we were like, okay, well, we're just going to pick the most equipped skinned per god that we're going to be moving over towards the beginning. And we wanted to prioritize porting over skins that we knew people liked. The question's been asked, why not just port over all of the tier 5s? Because those are kind of the most prestigious skins. And really, those skins have a ton of custom tech to make them function. We kind of said in the keynote that it takes about 8 person weeks, 2 person months to port over a normal skin from Smite 1 to Smite 2 with the effects and whatnot. And porting a tier 5 skin would take many, many times more than that. And in particular, it would take a lot of programming time to port each one because they work very differently. Currently, our belief is that it would be better to have those programmers working on making Smite 2's core gameplay feel more amazing. But we're always listening to the community, so I just want to let you know that's kind of the answer to that question. We also saw people ask, why not port all the skins as is in UE3 quality? And there's really not a port skin button from Smite, from UE3 to UE5. Materials and FX work completely differently, and we can't just bring things over without making any changes. Even if we did the minimal amount of changes to models, changing the materials and updating that for PBR, we would still need to remake the FX, and that's really the most time-consuming part, and a part that really makes Smite 2 feel alive and impactful in the way that we want to do, so we would want to do right. Or else use the base god effects for Smite 2, and we felt like players would think that that just doesn't feel like as good of a version of the skin that they had, and they would feel underwhelmed by that. And it also prevents us from making as many changes as we're trying to make to gods that require animation changes, because then we also have to reanimate all of the tassels and the extra doodads on each skin as we port it, and it adds more time to the process. So we're opened up to make more changes that way. The last big question that we've seen come up is, we said that most things are 50% off. I think the kind of default expectation is we're trying to be weaselly, and there's really not a lot of stuff that's going to be 50% off. Almost everything will be 50% off with your legacy gems. The one thing that we're pretty sure right now won't be discounted with legacy gems would be any kind of crossover content, just because of the way that those business deals work and the way that they want to share in the revenue of selling the skins. If crossover partners will let us, we would love to do that, but that's just something that we're expecting probably won't be discounted if we do that. We are also planning to have some things available for 100% off with your legacy gems. So we are planning to port some popular Smite 1 skins that are legacy skins, like we picked for the Divine Legacy, and those will be available for 100% off with legacy gems. So hopefully that explains a little bit more how legacy gems will work. I've been talking for a long time, I'm sorry. I have 2 more slides because I have to answer when are you guys going to get to play this game and how's this rollout going to work, because there's a lot of questions around that. And if we can go to that, I think the first thing that we're going to say is, we announced it. We're so excited, but we got a lot of work still to do. So over the next few weeks up until spring, we're going to be releasing kind of a new video, a new blog post, and we're going to be talking a lot more about features and things that we're doing in Smite 2. I think the first one you're going to see is a deep dive on the audio system, which is hugely updated from Smite to Smite 2, and you guys will really appreciate hearing from the audio team the work that's done, and hearing the new theme song. It's insane.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
And then from then, in spring, you guys are going to be able to get your hands on Smite 2 for the first time. You can either get a free key drop to play in alpha by signing up at smite2.com, or if you buy a Founders Pack, you'll get guaranteed access to our playtest. during this early alpha testing phase, we're expecting the game will be up 1 weekend a month. Then we're going to take all of your feedback because we want to make sure we're making the game that you want to play. We're going to work our asses off to make the game better and address that feedback over the next month. And then we'll do another playtest weekend, and we'll see what you guys think. And we want to keep evolving this game with your feedback to make it as amazing as we know it can be. And then from there, we'll go into a 24/7 kind of beta phase where we're targeting somewhere around 25, a little over 25, 30 gods when we enter that phase. And we'll kind of debut our second all-new god that we've been telling you about. And from there, we want to grow the roster pretty rapidly. And we're currently planning to release one new god a week, or one moved god a week, not all new god. I want to, yeah, all new god. Every week, as we're in this closed beta phase, until we get to a true free-to-play launch. And maybe Travis, you can talk a little bit about like the importance to us of starting with a small roster of gods.
And obviously, it's just a way to get the 40 million players that have played Smite throughout the 10 years to a chance to re-engage with the game with a smaller roster is just a huge advantage of this system. And so we want to make sure that we're introducing gods that have had the quality of life improvement or the gameplay that we want to have those gods experience. We want to be careful with every one of them and reevaluate everyone that we bring into the game. So for those two reasons, it's like starting with a smaller roster, make sure that we deliver the best quality god play, you know, and then also hopefully can re-engage the 40 million players over the lifetime of Smite to get back into it.
To jump in on that, just one other point. It's also really exciting for players who have never played Smite before, because one of the things that we see with the new players coming into the game is that it's a little overwhelming to figure out your niche, figure out which specific god speaks to you, and the smaller roster is like perfect for that. And we all thought that the kind of point that we want to get to for free to play is perfect for that wave of hopefully brand new players. Yeah.
Awesome. And then because we know that every god is somebody's favorite, we do want to keep moving fast until we get to at least 100 gods, because we know that we need to get to that level and have everybody's favorite god there as soon as we possibly can. And we want to hear from you, like, what are your favorite gods? What do you want us to be making? Like, you know,
yeah, I remember there's a meeting we had where we were all sitting there, and you'd also compiled a list of a whole bunch of people you talked to about how they ranked it, and that meeting was passionate. Everyone has a different perspective of what god they really think defines Smite, and that's one of the coolest things about Smite. But like, definitely send your suggestions. We're listening.
Maybe we could even say that we could spoil a little bit and say that the next god is Fenrir.
Oh.
No, that's actually true, though.
Okay, well, actually, nice god, Fenrir. Okay, awesome. Awesome to hear.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot today. Thank you guys so much for being up here. I think we have one more little teaser for everybody out there in the audience. How many of you remember an old skin that you got for playing Smite 1 in closed beta? Yeah, can we see that skin in Smite 1? Just maybe take a quick look. So this is Cacodemon Emir. He's maybe a little old, a little outdated, and we thought, man, what would we do if we could build a skin for Smite 2 from the ground up, no restrictions whatsoever, taking full advantage of UE5? Let's see what Cacodemon Emir looks like in UE5.
That's sick.
We're so excited what we can do with skins, with gods. You guys saw Hecate in the keynote, with literally everything with this new foundation that we have to work from. Like, our team at Titan Forge Games is amazing. I love the people that I work with every day, and I love Smite. There's so much more that we can do with the foundation that we've built for Smite 2. And what we've been showing this weekend is really like the starting point. Like, if you think back to where Smite 1 was 10 years ago with the broccoli trees and with, you know, all of the differences then, like, I'm so excited to see where we can take Smite 2 with this new tech, with this new foundation. And I'm so excited for you all to hopefully be there with us and play the next generation of Smite. So thank you all so much for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing a little bit more about the making of Smite 2. And yeah, we're so excited for the Smite World Championship. Root for the totems. Let's have a great day. Thank you all so much.
You love your sticks and stones. You throw them my way to make a point, but I don't have hollow bones, so you'll never take away my voice. You used to be like home, but now the whole place is so destroyed, and I'll survive